It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman. Glad to be back with you here on a wonderful December 23rd. That's right, just 2 days away from Christmas, and one of our last shows, it seems. Maybe our last show of the year, maybe not our last show of the year, maybe one more next week. We'll see, but glad to be back after a long time and a lot of LA Galaxy news to get you caught up on and get you ready for. To help me do that, the man who's been patiently waiting while I've been off for a little bit here, is the panda himself, Mr. Kevin Baxter. What's up, Kev?
Hey, I used to do a pod with a guy. He did like over 700 shows.
Yeah.
The guy was an Iron Man. He was there every week. Whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah, I know. He had a baby. I mean, that was everybody.
Wow, that's history. The first guy to have a baby.
The first guy. It was. It feels like sometimes it feels like I'm the first guy to have it and do all that stuff. But no, a little bit early actually, because if I remember correctly, as I do, I told everybody, Kevin, that the baby's due date was December 19th, and here he was born on December 2nd.
Yeah, I saw the flag went up. That was clearly offside.
It was a little premature. But that's okay. No, he was fine. There was no problem. He was born 7 pounds, 13 ounces, more than ready to come into this world whenever it comes to that. But Jacob Andrew is his name, Jacob Andrew Guestan. No soccer player references in there, which I'm sure goes against most of the bets that were laid down on his name there. So anyway, that's
I was disappointed in the three names, to be honest. I thought it would be like a Brazilian soccer player, like like Fred or Barney or something. And Mom is doing well.
Mom is hanging in there. She's doing well. She's fine. Michaela's doing good. She says that we need to hurry up and get this podcast done because I have duty to go back and probably change some more diapers. I will say I didn't quite remember getting peed on this much in parenthood. That there seems to be some sort of targeting device specifically on me. So,
well, those millennials. Well, the biblically named Jacob looks great in those Manchester City togs I sent out.
I know. I was going to say, you sent him over. We put him in it. I will say once again, and for everybody to know, his EPL fandom is currently up for the highest bidder. Manchester City came in strong with you right away. But I don't have an English Premier League team, so I'm willing to go through all 20 plus teams. Let's do it. Let's see which one we can do. But yeah, so he enjoyed that. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Yeah, he's just sort of so far been a pretty chill baby. So hopefully that'll mean that I get to do more recording and do it. But yeah, I think this might be the longest break in Corner of the Galaxy history because I got married and I think I only missed 3 shows. Something like that.
I think you recorded from the wedding.
I did not. I would have gotten yelled at for that for sure. I did go to a game the day after the wedding because we weren't leaving for the honeymoon until the Monday. So
that's right. I remember that you interrupted the space between the wedding and the honeymoon was a Galaxy game.
It was, absolutely. So I got cleared for that one. That was fine. But yeah. So anyway, we're back. I don't exactly know what the schedule it is, but to be quite honest, it's the off season, Kevin, and I never know what the schedule is going to be or how it's going to be. So we'll continue on. When there's news to talk about, we'll try to have shows, and when there's not, we probably won't have shows. But right now, after being off for almost a month, I think we can aggregate a bunch of Galaxy news to give us a full show here. So hopefully everybody's back. Hopefully everybody's preparing for a nice holiday break here in the middle of the week, and that they haven't gone too crazy. That apparently the Galaxy have been sitting on their hands, which maybe smartly, maybe not smartly, have been doing so far in this off season. But
I mean, I've talked to the Galaxy. By the way, the Galaxy PR staff won PR Staff of the Year for MLS this year. So
they did.
Congratulations there for that.
Good job to those guys.
But they, I think, because of Jacob's birth, they knew that you were gone. They have made very little news this month, and I talked to them I talked to them today, the PR staff again. And they don't expect to make any announcements until after the first of the year. That doesn't mean they're not doing things, and that doesn't mean they're not signing players, which we'll talk about. But I think because of Jacob's birth and knowing that the Galaxy podcast was sort of in hiatus for a while,
right?
They are not expected to make any more announcements until the first of the year. So we'll see if they hold to that.
Yeah, I was going to say everybody gets a little bit of time off for the holidays, and then they'll go rapid fire, I'm sure. Well, to go back, we have to go back about 12 days or so even. We have to talk about one deal they did announce. In fact, a couple deals they did announce. We talked to you about Sebastian Lletget's signing. Everybody knew that he signed a new contract and that now he's back with the LA Galaxy, but the LA Galaxy did re-sign another player, and then they also got a free agent who we had heard was coming to the LA Galaxy for a little while as well. So Sacha Kljestan signed a free agent deal with the LA Galaxy, the 34-year-old midfielder coming from Orlando, where he had, I would say, what would be a very off year last year with just 23 games played and just 13 games started, only 1,300 minutes played. But 34-year-old Sacha Kljestan now with the LA Galaxy as a free agent, looking sort of in that box-to-box midfielder role, maybe somebody you could eventually pair with Jonathan Dos Santos, maybe not a out-and-out starter, depending on what formation you put out there and what players you have available. But the LA Galaxy get Sacha Kljestan, who I'm going to guess, Kevin, and I haven't talked to him yet, but I want to talk to him soon, hopefully get him on the show. But I have to guess, wanted to come home at the end of his career. He's a Huntington Beach native, so getting him back to Southern California, whether that was with LAFC or LA Galaxy, was probably a priority for him, so he lands with the LA Galaxy, which I think is a really good sort of pickup for the LA Galaxy, obviously depending on money and a whole bunch of other things.
Well, we'll talk about this in a minute, but it kind of fits the MO of the Galaxy are becoming sort of an old team. I mean, you talk about Steres signing, he's 29, Giancarlo Gonzalez, 31, Ralph Felcher, 29, Bingham is 30, Jonathan Dos Santos is gonna turn 30 in April, I believe. Corona's 31, Sacha now 34. If Ramon comes back, he'll be 31 in April. So the team is getting old, and the rest of the league is getting young, and it's kind of an interesting way they're doing it. And some of the guys we'll talk about that they're talking about signing, they're all signing them to one-year contracts with an option, and that's interesting to me. Yes, they're over 30, and it's probably a safe thing to do that. But you wonder if a lot of this is place setting. If the Galaxy has an idea where they want to go going forward, but they're not there yet. It just seems odd that they're signing so many players that are at 30 or over 30.
Yeah, but I mean, some of these aren't really signings that are that old or that type of thing. First of all, like defenders at 30 is not necessarily the same thing as, a striker at 30 or 31 or 32. 34 is getting up there for a midfielder, but I also don't think that Sacha Kljestan is a surefire starter for this team.
I don't think he's a starter. I think he sort of fits that Chris Pontius coming off the bench and being providing some experience, how to close out games late or how to come back. And remember, Alan Gordon was really good at that, coming in late in a game and either closing the game out or bringing the Galaxy back. Sacha can certainly do that. I do think he's coming in as depth. I agree with you. You don't get experience by being 26. So it makes sense for him to be 34 and being brought in for experience.
Yeah, and again, I imagine that this is more of, a sweetheart deal in terms of that the Galaxy were more than willing to put him on as long as the salary was under a certain constraint and a whole bunch of things, because at 34, you're not exactly, or you shouldn't be breaking the bank for a guy who seems to have crested at least his peak in 2018 and 2017. Some real great years with the New York Red Bulls and off with Orlando. And Orlando's been a bit of a dumpster fire at times too, so it's always tough to sort of tell how much of that is the players, how much is the organization, how much is, any of those different things. So, I think it's a good pickup. It could end up being a value pickup for the LA Galaxy. He could end up, if there's an injury anywhere in the midfield, he could end up being a starter. So in my mind, it seems like the Galaxy are building some depth with this move, and I think it's a good move.
Well, he's been an attacking midfielder. He's been a defensive midfielder. He, as you said, he plays box to box. He really is that perfect depth pickup because he can play anywhere in the midfield.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. If we go on to the next sort of re-signing, a guy who we told you would more than likely re-sign, and it just seemed it was a matter of time, and in fact it played out that way. Dan Steres, coming back, 29-year-old re-signs with the LA Galaxy on I believe what is a multi-year deal. It's always a multi-year deal, even if it's 1 year plus an option. It's still a multi-year deal because they'll consider that 2 years. Steres, Kevin, the most consistent defender for the LA Galaxy this year, the most consistent returning defender for the LA Galaxy for sure, with Polenta not returning. I had him, I think, as one of the best defenders on the team last year, and whether or not this is sort of one of those years you can say that the LA Galaxy didn't have a great defense, and therefore anybody, even somebody who's really good, whenever they're really bad, doesn't really fit the bill. In my mind, Dan Steres was a bright spot on the LA Galaxy's defense for most of this year, scored 3 goals with the LA Galaxy last year.
That makes him the top returning scorer, by the way.
It makes 100% sense just with everything going on, and with Zlatan Ibrahimovic scoring most of the LA Galaxy's goal. So, in my mind, this is a move I expected the LA Galaxy to make. It's a move that I expect, that Steres should still be a starter, but it's going to be interesting to see what else the LA Galaxy do, and if they continue to sort of revamp the defense or bring in some other defenders, and we certainly have some defenders coming in. At least one for sure we can talk about in the rumors towards the end, and not even much of a rumor, but we'll talk about that. But there's some other rumored defenders coming in as well, and so can Dan Steres sort of maintain that starting role going into this with what I would expect to be, Kevin, a substantial raise from what he was making last year. I don't know that for sure, but I feel like if they wanted to keep him, they wanted to put him back, that he would end up getting more money than he was making last year, and I don't think that's much of a stretch.
Yeah, I'd like to see that salary, mainly because Dan Steres has kind of been in that Dave Romney role a little bit, in that every year he comes in and it's like, you got a challenge for your starting spot. Nothing's guaranteed to you. You got to earn it. And he does. And it's been 3 years in a row now where he's earned that starting spot and he's played really well, but it's always appeared like he's on the bubble. And again, we have him coming back in with Giancarlo Gonzalez, and we'll talk about the possibility of another center back coming in, which looks to me another player they're bringing in to challenge Daniel Steres. But if they gave him a good bump in salary, that would seem to indicate that he's proved his worth. He definitely deserves the starting spot, seems to me, unless they bring in some all-world guy that we not on our radar right now.
Yeah, 30 games played, 30 games started for Dan Steres. 3 goals, 2,615 minutes. Had the 1 red card, of course. But in 2019, like I said, I don't think that you had a better defender on the LA Galaxy. Diego Polenta was more flashier. He wasn't as consistent as Dan Steres was, though. Certainly not up and down. And how do the LA Galaxy rebuild this defense if you figure that Rolf Feltscher is going to be back on the right side, if you figure that Giancarlo Gonzalez, who was a large disappointment in 2019, comes back into this lineup, is now partnered with Dan Steres, and then, you sort of have those 3, and then whoever's going to be your left back. Those are sort of questions of, did they really revamp the defense enough that there's going to be significant improvement where there needs to be a significant improvement for the LA Galaxy?
And Julian Araujo is going to play a lot of minutes too, probably in place of Feltscher. But they beyond that, they definitely need some depth.
They do. The depth is the important part. Revamping, sort of trying to get away from all those goals that they allowed in 2019. So not a good defense in 2019. So anything they can do this offseason to revamp, to add depth, this should pay some dividends. Even though they did a lot of that, by the way, in 2019 in the offseason to bring in a whole bunch of defenders. It just, the pieces didn't always fit together whenever they wanted to. Let's go to another move the LA Galaxy made, Kevin, that is, I don't know, it's head-scratching. It's one of those, it's not head-scratching in terms of why they do it. It's more head-scratching in terms of why does MLS do this stuff. So that way it's crazy. I just want to put this out here so everybody understands that the LA Galaxy acquired an MLS Super Draft pick from Cincinnati in exchange for the homegrown rights to Zico Bailey. That's so they didn't get the player, they got his homegrown rights. Which, by the way, whenever homegrown players were first sort of announced and entered into Major League Soccer, Kevin, it was sort of explained to us, well, it's when they signed their first professional contract with Major League Soccer, that's why we call them a homegrown. It has to be their first professional contract. And if you remember, Jack McBean signed as his first professional contract, and you're like, okay, that makes sense. So now they have his homegrown rights. And then Jack McBean actually went down and was not renewed by the LA Galaxy and went down to LA Galaxy 2. So he signed a professional contract technically with another team, with LA Galaxy 2, and was not listed as a homegrown anymore. And then they re-signed him to the senior team and somehow got his homegrown rights back again. There's just it's always been sort of a little fluid situation of exactly how they explain what homegrown is and what those rights are. But apparently the rights can now follow a player to a different team entirely, and that's what has happened here. And I'm sure it's happened in other places. We just don't pay attention to it. But
let me say, I understand absolutely nothing what you just said, and I think probably 90% of people are with me. And this is why MLS struggles, especially in this time of year when we get the transfer window opening. People are building their rosters. and nobody understands the rule. This guy gets TAM, this guy gets JAM. The salary cap is going up, but how high? What's the maximum salary charge per player? How much TAM and JAM money do teams have? We don't know. No one tells us. Even the competitive, we don't know. The Galaxy front office, Dennis DeClosa, does not know how much JAM or TAM money Seattle has, for example.
They technically do. We've talked about this. They technically do. I got told this specifically, and it was always like, well, then why is it a competitive advantage not to tell everybody else if all the other teams know what your JAM and TAM is? Because they have a spreadsheet that goes around, because it was explained to me that the reason that a spreadsheet goes around with those numbers on it to the other teams is that way you know before you even get into the discussion with that team whether or not they have the amount of money that you're looking to get for something or blah, 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 or other things like that, so you don't waste your time. Basically. But so then, by the way, Kevin, that only amplifies it doesn't make any sense. Because if the teams know how much JAM and TAM they have for each other, why don't they just tell everybody else?
You look at what's going on with baseball right now with Scott Boras and his all of his players signing over $1 billion worth of contracts in this offseason. It's in the paper every day. It's on SportsCenter. If people are talking about it, even if you're not a baseball fan, it's interesting seeing these guys change teams. You can't do that. I mean, even people like you who follow it, I know that you've gone up to team officials at certain times and said, hey, are you going to sign this guy? And they'll tell you, oh, we don't have an international spot, or his homegrown rights belong to somebody else, or whatever esoteric rule they have. And I think it dampens the fans' interest, because they can't sort of think along with Dennis DeClosa or John Thornton or whomever and sort of put together their own teams because they don't know the rules.
Yeah, it's abstract. I mean, people ask me all the time, well, how much money does the LA Galaxy have? I don't know. I have no clue, and I follow this pretty closely. I'm sure there's people out there who can put spreadsheets together and get even closer than I can, but I find it's not worth it because you're never going to get exacting. You don't know. I mean, just one of the things that we don't know is like, okay, so TAM was used to sign this player. Okay, Kevin, now if there's a max budget of $530,000, did the LA Galaxy just pay enough to get down to the $529,000, or did they pay more because there's more of a cap offset whenever you do that? So you don't know those things, and so even when you guess, you can't guess correctly because there's too many variables within all these things. So anyway, the homegrown rights got traded for Zico Bailey. The only thing that you really need to know about this is that if Bailey meets certain MLS criteria, probably games played or something else, then the LA Galaxy would then get $50,000 in, I believe, general allocation money. Who knows? But that's just... Again, one of those things that happened. It was a trade. It happened, and we move on from that. Basically, there was also a pickup. Danilo Acosta as well. I think in the second stage of the reentry draft, the LA Galaxy picked up his rights. And it wasn't the reentry draft. I think it was the waiver draft. It was one of those drafts whenever it was going through.
You can't even keep track of the draft.
Oh, I can't. It's and especially being that I wasn't glued to the computer the whole time either. I actually have it on the off-season rumor tracker and all that stuff. Is right. You can find basically where they picked him up, but they have his rights. And I see people automatically, and by the way, it was the waiver draft. I see people automatically saying that, Acosta is going to be placed on the roster, and that's not what that means either. The LA Galaxy currently have his rights, and if he decides to play for the LA Galaxy and they can work out a contract, then yes, Danilo Acosta will be on the LA Galaxy, which I think you would place in like the 90-95% in terms of him being added to the roster, but there's no guarantee he gets added to the roster right now. So my roster, which currently stands at 17 players, including Jorgen Skjelvik, and I had it checked by the LA Galaxy in terms of it being correct. So my roster doesn't have Danilo Acosta on it because he has not been added to the roster yet.
Well, first of all, the LA Galaxy should be asking you to check their roster because I just went on the website not long ago. They don't even have Sacha on there yet.
Yeah.
Zlatan's probably still on there. I missed him. But, PR staff of the year, update your roster, you guys. A little prop here to you. If anybody really wants to know what's going on, the stuff on the Corner Galaxy website with the salary and the rumor trackers and all that, that's better than you're going to find anywhere else. And I know you're sort of joking about not understanding the salary rules, but some of the stuff you put up there may not be 100% accurate. Ziggy Schmidt told me one time that he was trying to buy a player, and there was actually extra money that the Galaxy were credited with having that they didn't have, that the league just made a mistake, and so Ziggy went out and tried to buy a player with money that technically the team didn't have. So I say that only in a way to say that your stuff online is by far the closest to accurate that anyone's going to find anywhere. It's probably Dennis uses your figures as well, I would guess.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure that's what he goes to cornerofthegalaxy.com all the time. So that's what we have on that. I will tell you that, one of the things that gets picked up in this is a 4th round pick from Cincinnati in the Super Draft, and the Super Draft this year was just cleavered by Major League Soccer. Kevin,
wasn't very super at all.
Well, I mean, it won't be. And I think, by the way, I don't think that that's wrong. I think that the importance of the draft, this college draft coming out for Major League Soccer, has diminished to the point where teams pass in the later rounds. So this 4th round pick from the LA Galaxy, they may never even pick anybody. But in terms of having it, at a big convention center and having this big thing, that's gone. It's not happening anymore. And whether or not that ever comes back, I doubt it ever will. They had a player combine in Raleigh, I think the 13th through the 15th, that had college players go there that teams could go check out and see if they wanted anybody. But the Super Draft itself is basically been relegated to a Twitter feed. It will be a video that's placed on Twitter, and it's being co-produced by ESPN and Major League Soccer, but it's not being aired anywhere that I know of on ESPN, and that's certainly not what I read in the announcement. So for the most part, it's going to be on Twitter, and you have it there, and you can go watch it. And there's going to be a bunch of remote cameras, Kevin. Nobody's in the same room, so they'll have a camera inside the LA Galaxy draft room, which will probably be over at Dignity Health Sports Park. And then if they pick a player, they might have cameras in the players' area for at least some of the top players they have. They'll have cameras that they just throw feeds into to say, oh, hey, yeah, thanks, and you'll have players. So it's going to be like a Google Hangout more than it is, this draft thing.
If Jacob were not one of the players that might be drafted, why would you watch that?
Yeah, I have no idea. No, it doesn't make any sense to me. It does make sense to me in terms of the importance of the draft is gone, so why make it a big deal? I mean, you're seeing that most of the first-round draft picks probably don't make it in Major League Soccer. You have guys like Tomas Hilliard-Arce, who was drafted pretty high by the LA Galaxy, who's I don't see a starting role for the LA Galaxy, or even a significant substitution role right now with the LA Galaxy. So even whenever you're getting these highest ranked college players, you're not getting any big this isn't Jossie Zardes, who just before the draft, even though he didn't go in the draft because he was signed as a homegrown player, went on TV at the draft, says my skills are going to blow your mind. And then he goes out and he plays and he starts. I mean, that stuff, it seems like it's not happening as much. So I think the de-emphasis of the MLS Super Draft is probably a good thing. It means that MLS is certainly shopping more on the world market, and that they're not relying on this college draft anymore. Maybe it's sad for college soccer that needs a major revamp anyway. But however you say it, the MLS Super Draft is adios. There's no more of that. So you can catch it. I think it's on January 9th, and it'll start at 9 a.m. Pacific time. You can catch it on Twitter and basically watch what's going down. You can see who the LA Galaxy pick, and we'll have coverage of it on the website and all that fun stuff. But it's not this big, huge thing that it was before.
I will not be watching.
Just wait for the results. Wait for the press release.
Right.
That's one of those. All right, so we go onward as we continue down the announcements for the LA Galaxy. Excuse me, the announcements for the LA Galaxy. We move closer, obviously, to the rumors that we want to get to and tell you where we see a possibility of
lots of rumors.
Lots of rumors. Yes, I will agree with that. So we have those coming up, but there's a couple more announcements we need to go to, including the schedule. But first, the safe standing area. Remember, this is on the north side of the stadium. The LA Galaxy launching a new safe standing area on.
That's where the Raiders fans were sitting. On Sunday.
When the last game for the
the Raiders fans were sitting everywhere. So that's not true.
Yeah, they were all over the stadium. The LA Chargers last game at Dignity Health Sports Park for the LA Chargers, I believe. That's what everybody says.
Not the last football game.
Not the last football game.
Which LA Wildcats are coming.
That's right. The XFL is still going on there right now too. So yeah, that'll still happen at Dignity Health Sports Park. The Chargers are out. It seems now. They will go over to SoFi Stadium and be a tenant over there with the Rams. The Rams and Kroenke owning that stadium. So that's all happening. But the LA Galaxy now revamping that north stand. The safe standing area gets a name. They actually named it. Now, you remember on the north side of that stadium, there is Victoria Street, which some of us use to enter and exit Dignity Health Sports Park. And so I always figured that there might be a tie-in, and I think we talked about that at one time, whenever we were discussing different names for the actual stadium, Victoria Street and sort of how that goes. And in sort of the European way of naming blocks or naming stands after the streets, or at least the directions that they're on, and different ways that sort of happens. You see that the new safe standing area, and that name gets the Victoria Block moniker.
Is that what it was? I thought it was Victoria Beckham.
No, that's not it. Not
posh standing.
The not posh stands. No, the Victoria Block will be the home of Angel City Brigade, the Galaxians, and the new LA Galaxy supporters group over there in the north end, the Galaxy Outlaws. So I don't know much about them, so hopefully I'll get to learn some about them and talk to some of the Outlaws and figure out what they're all about. Maybe we'll have some on the show, that type of thing. We'll do it. But those three groups will be there on the north end. LA Riot Squad stays in its southeast corner there, so that's sort of a fun thing. I know that they had an open house where they all the supporters had an open house where everybody got together a couple weeks ago. I'm sorry I didn't make it to it. I was actually trying to think about if I could sneak away with a 5 or 6 day old baby. My wife thought that was really humorous of me to even think that. So all that stuff, but that's going on. There will also be a community open training session on Saturday, February 8th to get the first look at the Victoria Block. So everybody can put that in their calendars.
Isn't there like a barbecue associated with that?
I think that was the open supporters thing that happened a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week. I honestly don't even know what day it is most of the time, so don't ask me. But yeah, that seems there's a different open training session that's coming up on February 8th, where I think all the work will be done there, and you actually get to go take a look and see what it actually looks like instead of just the renderings that have popped up and all that fun stuff. So should be a good time. I think people will enjoy it. So we'll see how that goes as well.
It's long overdue.
It is, and it's good. That's a good place, and I think that'll add a good sort of atmosphere there on the north end as well. It's already a good atmosphere there. I think it just helps, and I think that the supporters have been banging on the LA Galaxy to get this done for years. The fact that it finally got across the line is great for them, and hopefully...
And the berm is now history. It's not gone the way of the Super Draft, because I love the berm back in the berm days.
I imagine the berm is still going to be there. In fact, the berm should be now reopened with grass and no seats again.
I love that berm.
Yeah, I think this berm stays. The Victoria Block's just south of that, or underneath that, I should say.
Right. So you'll still be able to sit on the berm, at the top of the berm at least, and watch the games.
Yes. On the very rare occasion, remember, if one person hits the grass, it's 27,000 person sellout. That's how it always worked, right?
Exactly.
One person on the grass, 27,000. So that's how that goes. All right, LA Galaxy schedule release as well. Again, a busy sort of build up to all this stuff, but the LA Galaxy's 2020 schedule was released. There's a whole bunch of interesting things to sort of take away with this. I'll tell you right now, May is this month from hell. With 7 games, including 2 3-game weeks. So weeks where you play 3 games in a single week. And as a matter of fact, I haven't seen much of these before, Kevin. There are 5 times in the schedule the LA Galaxy play 3 games in a week. Okay, so not ridiculous, but it's something, and you certainly have to watch this. And in May they'll do it twice, so that's scary. But there are 2 times in this schedule where they play a Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday instead of a Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday. And those are going to be that's what we call 3 games in 7 days.
But you know what? The travel in May, I know it's a ton of games, but the travel, thankfully, is light. I mean, they go to Portland and then go to Colorado 4 days later, so that's one trip. Then another away game is at LAFC, so they don't have to leave the city, and then they go to Salt Lake. So, I mean, they in that span they play the New York Red Bulls and DC United. If they had to make both those games on the road, that would be horrible. But unfortunately, both those games will be at home.
I don't think I remember seeing this, but there are only games on 3 days of the week this year, at least so far. We'll see how it changes. But right now, it's just Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. 5 games on Wednesday, so only 5 midweek games right now. And somebody asked me a great question, and they said, hey, with the CBA, and we've talked a bunch about the collective bargaining agreement and how it's not done, and how, I don't know, Kevin, you and I both feel like there's probably a pretty good chance that there's a work stoppage to start this year, right?
Yeah.
That's that. I'm not going out on the limb saying that. That's something we've been saying. So if there is a work stoppage, somebody says, does it look like MLS sort of padded the schedule at all in order to see where they could do it? And I'll tell you, one of the things that I found was that the LA Galaxy don't have any midweek games after July 1st. So there are no midweek games after July 1st. All of the Wednesday games, all 5 of them, get played between April and July 1st. Okay, so in my mind, that means that the schedule has been built in to have midweek games being able to be played on the back end of the schedule. Now, having said that, there's also Leagues Cup and U.S. Open Cup and all sorts of fun things that you get to throw in there as well. So we'll see how that actually plans out. But there could be the way the schedule's laid out, that could be some hedging by Major League Soccer to say, okay, so if our season doesn't start on time, which is a real possibility, if it doesn't start on time, then maybe, just maybe, we could add some midweek games in towards the end of the schedule to sort of still play a 34-game schedule if everything doesn't start right away.
Well, and Jassie's Artist will not be coming in this year. The Galaxy will not play Columbus.
Yeah, they don't play Columbus, Montreal, and who's the other one? I can't remember who the other one is. It's in my It's in my article. I wrote it.
Yeah, we haven't. The reason that is because with 2 new expansion teams, the schedule will be unbalanced. Where Western Conference teams will play each other, all the other Western Conference teams twice, home and away. But that leaves them with only 10 Eastern Conference games, and they're 13 teams. So they will play only 10 of the 13 Eastern Conference teams. They will miss Columbus, Montreal, and a team to be named or to be remembered. We can't remember who it is right now.
It was really a big deal for us. I could tell that we were worried. I'm trying to think if they
do play Inter Miami. They play David Beckham's
New
Inter
England.
Miami.
It's New England. How could we forget Bruce Arena in New England?
New England. They don't play Bruce Arena.
Yeah, Columbus, Montreal, and New England. Those are the 3 that they do not play. And like you said, Nashville, by the way, comes in as a new team. We talked about that when Dave Romney joined there and was traded to Nashville. But Nashville joins the Western Conference, which means the LA Galaxy will play them twice.
They'll go to Music City once.
They will there and back. This whole thing starts, by the way, the whole season starts on February 29th. So starting on Leap Day, which is always
earliest start ever. And it's surprising that Miami is not coming here so that, David could see the Victoria Posh Beckham stand
on. Yep. Good way to reach for that one. That one was nice and smooth. But yeah, Inter Miami is a highlight on March 14th. The LAFC games Saturday, May 16th. For the first time ever in the rivalry between these two teams, the first game of the season will be played at Bank of California Stadium. All the other times the LA Galaxy have hosted the first game, so they will now go to LAFC on May 16th. By the way, there are, if I'm correct, 5 over-the-air games for the LA Galaxy, which I think is something that people really should pay attention to, because I don't remember there being 5 over-the-air games for the LA Galaxy before. But if you look, 17 nationally televised games overall. There are 3 games being played on ABC, so not ESPN.
A lot of ABC games this year throughout the league.
Yeah, that's a change. That's a big change from what we've seen over the years. It's good that you're getting that the 3-letter network sort of support there. ABC, 3 games, and then Fox, Big Fox, FOX Fox, not FS1, but Big Fox, 2 games for the LA Galaxy as well. So 5 over-the-air games for the LA Galaxy, and then you have 17 total nationally televised games, which, Kevin, means that there are only 17 games that will be played on Spectrum this year, at least so far. We'll see if any more get picked up, but that means 17 games for the LA Galaxy as well, and that means that if I counted correctly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are only 6 games this year that are away games that Spectrum will have to actually cover.
And is this the last year that the contract?
2020. I think it expires in 2021.
Okay, so they're paying $5.5 million for half the season.
Yeah, half the season, and if you look at it ratings-wise, you would imagine their ratings would be higher on away games, right, Kevin? Because the majority of people who want to go to the game actually just go to the game at home games. And so, that you take away your 15,000 something people that might watch. Otherwise, well, in this particular case, there's only 6 games that you actually have to rely on Spectrum for this year, which I think you and I, at least I'll speak for myself just in case it wasn't you as well, but I've said that Spectrum's product has sort of gone down the tank whenever it comes to covering the LA Galaxy now for years. The only really pluses there are the crew that covers it, including Kobe Jones and Joe Gittino, and Megan Riza as well. And I forget, she got married and now she has a hyphenated last name, and I screwed that up, Megan, and I'll remember it eventually. But anyway, so I mean that's sort of the highlight of that. Otherwise, I've thought that the production quality of the entire sort of game days thing has just gone completely south. And Spectrum,
they came out of the gate really fast, but then they're on the same network with the Lakers, and I think the Lakers just sucked all the air out of the room. The whole backstage Galaxy stuff and all that they used to do in Spanish as well is really, really dwindled. I mean, I think they really had high hopes, and they just didn't get the ratings. And by the way, you speak about people that want to see the games when it's at home, they don't stay home and watch it. We've talked about this before, maybe not on the air, but the Galaxy season ticket base is pretty small compared to some of the other teams in the league, especially in the Western Conference. Yet they still average over nearly 23,000 a game. It'd be really interesting to see if there were figures on what their walk-up is, because it's got to be for the teams that play in soccer-specific stadiums. You can't compare attendance here to Seattle or Atlanta, because they have a lot more walk-up tickets available. But it's got to be one of the highest rates in the league for walk-up attendance. People that just say, hey, tomorrow there's a MLS game out in Carson, I'm going to go out and see that. I'm going to go stand in line and buy a ticket for that game.
Yeah, I mean, it has to. We always say, let's give the LA Galaxy more season ticket holders than they have, and say that they have 12,000 season ticket holders,
which they don't, which they're not even close to that.
Yeah, I don't believe they are. I don't remember what the actual number is anymore.
It's around 9.
Yeah, 9,500 I think is right around what they said at one time. I heard 7,200 at one point. So yeah, as you put it. But let's say the Galaxy have 12, and they're getting 23. So that means what? 11,000 people have either bought tickets in some sort of package that isn't season ticket, have advance purchased and or walked up to that game. And I'm telling you, the walk-ups are a significant portion of that as they come in. So anyway, all interesting for the games. I know there's been some gripes, Kevin. And there's always gripes as it goes. There are 6 home games that kick off before 2:30 p.m. At Dignity Health Sports Park. That means those are usually weekend games. That also means, by the way, those are usually nationally televised games. So with 17 nationally televised games, whenever it's nationally televised, they determine what the schedule is and when they kick off.
Do you realize how good that is for Deadline?
I know everybody. Larry Morgan, not on Twitter, jumped up and down, I'm sure, whenever they said that as well, because he loves early games. Scott French loves them early games. For some fans, obviously, looking at that, the bread and butter really should be the Saturday games, those Saturday night games, and there's only 8 Saturday night games, Saturday games overall, and some of those aren't at night. So I always think that if you're looking for the most packed stadium, it's always Saturday night games, because that's in LA when people want to go out, when they have time to go out, when they have time to get through the traffic, and when they want to do it. Saturday night, a 7:30 kickoff time, even an 8 p.m. kickoff time is great. People show up for that. You do that any other time, and the attendance hits. You can see it. So Sunday games as well, not as popular. There are 10 Sunday games for the LA Galaxy, 7 home games. So 8 home games on Saturday, 7 home games on Sunday, and then 2 home games, it looks like, on Wednesday for the LA Galaxy. Whenever you look at sort of the different distributions.
The 25th annual July 4th game. It's back.
That's hurting them. I'm ready to be done with it. I'm ready. Well, I think my wife is ready to be done with it too, but I'm ready to be done with that July 4th game. I know it is a thing. And I know it's always been a thing, but it has cost the LA Galaxy in recent years whenever you look at the schedule congestion that comes with mandatorily having to play on July 4th and then also having to pick up the other games around it. So, a June 27th game, a July 4th game, a July 11th game, those are back-to-back-to-back. And again, however magically San Jose seems to always schedule themselves, around these things. And in fact, I can even do a better job of telling you all the games that are going on. A June 21st game, a June 27th, a July 1st, a July 4th, a July 11th, and a July 18th. I mean, these are rapid fire games that are just coming back and forth. And as I was mentioning, San Jose will once again do their giant cash grab at Stanford Stadium on June 27th, because they always like to have it right around the time when it's 4th of July as well, because they do 4th of July fireworks and they invite all the people and blah, 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 blah. They have that cash grab, and then the LA Galaxy mandatorily will play on a Wednesday, July 1st, and then play Saturday again. So that's a Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday for the LA Galaxy right around July 4th. And if they just decided that they didn't want to play on July 4th, which, by the way, is a Saturday this year, so they probably would have played on it anyway. But if they decided they didn't have to play on July 4th, Kevin, and didn't have to host a game, maybe their schedule would be a little bit lighter around July, because right now, every year, it seems like the Galaxy get punished by having that July 4th game.
And if Guillermo keeps signing guys from Argentina, July 4th is not going to mean that much anyways.
It's going to be, we're Argentina North right now. It seems to be for the LA Galaxy, which is always interesting as well. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that sort of pops out at you? I disappointedly, I think Fox Sports 1, FS1, will host more games than ESPN in terms of nationally televised. ESPN does a much better job of producing their games, of showing their games, and of getting ratings for their games than FS1 does. FS1 does not get the ratings, and I don't think the production quality is there. as well. So all interesting. 5 games on Spanish language as well. So you have the Unamas and the Univision. Those are all there as well. So you'll get 5 games on those 2 networks.
Atlanta is coming in. We'll get Atlanta here. New York Red Bulls will be here. Those are good games. Unfortunately, they're going, other visiting teams that you might want to see at Miami. The Galaxy travels to Miami. Miami did come in here. Philadelphia does not come in here.
Right.
New York City does not come in here. That's unfortunate. People want to see those teams. But so, those games will all be on the road. We do get the new team Nashville and obviously MLS champion Seattle Sounders because they're in the conference.
I'll tell you this right now, and I know there's people who argued against it, and I think that it's ridiculous you argued against this. The Supporter Shield's dead. All right, there's no such thing as a Supporter Shield anymore unless they go to each conference gets one and you only count in-conference games. And even that sort of, throws in a unbalanced look at that because, it depends on who you play before and who you play after and blah, 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 all these other things. But there's no such thing as a balanced schedule in Major League Soccer. There really hasn't been, and now this makes it even more so. And so as far as I'm concerned, the Supporter Shield is absolutely 100% dead. There's no way that you don't play 3 teams and you're going to still crown somebody a regular season champion. That doesn't make any sense to me. And the fact you don't play everybody twice in a balanced schedule to crown a regular season champion, it doesn't mean anything. And so for me, I know MLS will keep it because they've always had it. I would get 2 and do it by conference and conference. At least it's somewhat palatable that way. But the Supporter Shield's dead. It means nothing.
Well, here's one way they might get around it when they do. Charlotte was just announced during the baby break. Charlotte was announced as the 30th team. When they come in, you'll have 30 teams. What if they were to separate it into 3 conferences? And play 38 games, which would be tough if they want to keep this compacted schedule. It'd be impossible if they'd have to expand the schedule. But if they went that way, then you played, the teams in your conference twice. So that's 18 games. And then you play each of the other 2 conferences 1 game against each. That would be 38 games, which is the size of most of the European leagues. So you play 38 games. You play everybody in the league at least once, teams in your conference twice. Then the Supporter Shield might mean a little bit more. But yeah, when you don't even play 3 teams, like for example, LAFC is the defending Supporter Shield winner. They're not going to play Toronto, a team that went to MLS Cup final. They're not going to play them. So they get, that's essentially, they kind of get 3 points by not having to play one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, it's just anymore. I can't handle it with this. And the people trying to defend it. No, it's one person told me it's the one thing that ties Major League Soccer to the rest of the world. And I'm like, no, it doesn't, because the rest of the world plays balanced schedules in order to figure out who their regular season champion is, and MLS does not and has not and will not probably ever again. And 38 games is a lot of games, man. That's a ton. Yeah. So 34, I think, is where it stays. I don't think they're ever moving off the 34 because you have all the extracurricular games now, too, with CONCACAF Champions League, with Leagues Cup, with everything else that they want to do in there. It's bye-bye Supporter Shield. It means nothing, and I will no longer worry about that. In terms of something that needs to be reported on or talked about or blah, 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 or anything else. And if the LA Galaxy win it, I will have the same exact opinion, by the way.
No, you won't. If they're ahead of they're in the Shield, if they're leading the Shield standings in the middle of the season, you're going to be all over it.
It means nothing. I'll be like, yeah, they just won the Supporter Shield, and it means nothing because it's not a balanced schedule. Hey, that's great. You're doing a great job. Hey, you know what the better part of that is? Galaxy fans would be excited because that means that they would be first in the Western Conference and get those first-round buys and, be on their way. That's the good part about all this, is whenever you focus it like that. All right. Rumors time. Ding, ding, ding. Everybody's finally ready, and they've basically just fast-forwarded to this point anyway, Kevin. So let's start with rumors, and some that you and I both put articles out. This was kind of after baby break, but one that I had felt had been building up in support, and one that seemed more and more likely, and that was Ricardo Centurion, the 26-year-old striker from Argentina. This has been something that has been rumored as Guillermo Barros-Schelotto has talked about him in the past, and he's known him in the past, and all these things. And so there seemed to be this momentum building at one point, Kevin. And as a matter of fact, on the rumor tracker, I had it at 3 stars, which is actually a pretty mid-level rumor in terms of that. There's definitely smoke to this fire. We're paying attention. We're going to continue to pay attention. But the problem is, at 26 years old, this dude has this is one bad dude. One ridiculously seriously bad dude. He has so many problems. I don't know why anybody is paying him to play soccer anymore. And it's crazy. He has domestic violence issues and huge domestic violence. I mean, the red flag.
Really scary descriptions.
Really scary, super scary. Although I did get absolutely laid out on Reddit because apparently my Google Translate and the people who I talked to who are Spanish speakers didn't correct my translation of hanged to choked because it was a slang. So anyway, I said that he hanged his girlfriend, and I was incorrect. So I would like to correct that. He just merely choked her until she was unconscious. So I'm glad that we got that out there and that we have now corrected that wrong that
he threatened to kill somebody in a bar fight. He's been photographed brandishing guns a number of times.
Drunk driving issue, a DUI that he apparently fled the scene of.
And this was a guy that when he came to Boca Juniors, I think he came back from Italy. When he came to Boca Juniors and GBS was the coach there, a lot of this was brought up. The media in Argentina brought it up to him, and the team was Guillermo was trying to sign him. He was on a loan, I believe, and Guillermo wanted to sign him to a regular contract. And the media got all over that. And Guillermo said, look, when he's on the field, he's fine. I don't notice anything different. You know, when he's on the field, we pay him to be a player. We don't pay him for the other stuff, which was a hugely tone deaf thing to say.
Yeah.
But obviously, Guillermo still thinks that he's valuable as a player. The story that I wrote, I thought it was a really great move on the Galaxy's part. Certainly, this is a player for, again, what Guillermo said, what he does on the field, he fills the need that and Guillermo's comfortable with him. Both of those are good things. But you know what? The Galaxy, they are the premier franchise in MLS. They've won the most titles. They've won the most games. They've had the best players. They're the New York Yankees, for want of a better term, of MLS soccer. And a signing like this can really tarnish that image. If you buy the thing that the Galaxy are a little bit in a rebuilding mode and they're not the number one team in MLS, which some people argue with, but if you buy that, what they have right now is their reputation and their dignity and their class and the fact that they have been the number one franchise in MLS. Don't destroy that by signing a guy who may come in and score a couple of goals and help you win a couple of games, but then tarnish your image forever. There's a reason the New York Yankees don't let players wear beards and those kind of things. They're trying to hold on to that, the class that they developed back in the 50s and 60s when they were winning all the time. The Galaxy need to do that too, and I think it was great that they passed on this guy.
Yeah, it seems like they're walking away. Certainly John Rojas has been keeping me informed. Our good buddy John Rojas, who was covering the LA Galaxy, now over on the East Coast, has been keeping me informed and told me about this guy who was a bad actor. I mean, just as you point out, for all the reasons, there's no reason that Guillermo should even want his name associated with this guy anymore, in terms of what he is. So that seems like that is dying off, which is a good thing, because that just nobody needs to pay this guy to play soccer anymore, as far as I'm concerned. Let's talk about another rumor that I blame 100% on a reporter from the LA Times. Chicharito Javier Hernandez to the LA Galaxy. Kevin, this is your fault that this is even on the rumor tracker. I don't believe I don't believe there's even a possibility of it happening. I mean, coincidences and connecting dots, you could certainly make an argument for it. You have made that argument, but I'm blaming you for all this because I don't think this is within the realm of possibility right now.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I think Chicharito eventually comes here. Look, why would he come here? He's over 30 now. He's not even playing at Sevilla. He's not playing regularly at Sevilla. I still think he has some things to give. La Liga may be a little bit of a difficult reach for him. He's not in the national team picture anymore. So that whole conceit where you have to play in Europe to stay at a competitive level for the Mexican national team, we're beyond that, which is always kind of a little bit of an insult to MLS anyways. They would certainly take Carlos Vela in a heartbeat. So and Chicharito being a good-looking guy, bilingual, the marketing possibilities here are much greater than anything he can make in salary. So I think he does come here. The one thing that may be in the back of the mind, maybe he doesn't come to the Galaxy. The Galaxy could certainly use him. Dennis DeClosa knows him really well. I think he would fit into the style of play they want. So all those, you can check all those boxes off. But the one other thing that it's kind of in the back of my mind is Sevilla and Mochi, their sporting director, has a great reputation of buying low and selling high. And he got Chicharito for a song. He got him almost for free from West Ham, free in terms of European soccer. So right now he's an asset. If Mochi can flip him for any kind of money at all, I think he would do that in a heartbeat. He's a guy that's not playing for them. He's valuable. He's right now an asset for Sevilla in monetary form. So I think they would gladly part with him. We'll see the January transfer window coming up in La Liga, and we'll see if there's any interest. But I agree with you. I don't believe that he's coming to Galaxy right away, but I do think MLS is definitely in his future. And if Sevilla can find a way to make any money on it, we're talking like $1.50, I think they would do it in a heartbeat.
Well, let's talk about another player who's not coming to the LA Galaxy, Edinson Cavani. We talked about this as the LA Galaxy were interested in, were pursuing Cavani. They were going to Paris Saint-Germain. They were going to talk to him. All of these reports seem to have been true at one point. My thing was, or at least I was told, it seemed like the LA Galaxy wanted to get Cavani for free. His contract is up in summer, so they were trying to get PSG to be like, yeah, you can have him. We don't need him because, we're not going to get anything from him this summer anyway. But all of that goes out the wayside. And by the way, it should go out the wayside whenever Cavani signs what looks like a 3-year deal with Atletico Madrid. It's unclear whether that will happen in the winter and be a transfer, and whether there's a transfer fee involved, or whether that happens at summertime. But you're talking about, I don't know. I'm sure I'm going to get this wrong and people will argue with me, but maybe one of the top 10 to top 15 clubs in the world with Atletico Madrid, and the fact that they're struggling right now and they need a goal scorer and all these other things. Of course Cavani is going to go. You needed Cavani to want to come to Major League Soccer and put up with all the things that Major League Soccer has, and you're not going to do that whenever you have a team like Atletico Madrid who say that they want him and that they need him and that they're going to start. I mean, all that stuff means they're going to pay him more money, and he has a much larger sort of footprint on the global game with Atletico Madrid than he does with the LA Galaxy. Those all make sense. To me, this is not a loss by the LA Galaxy. People are saying, I can't believe they didn't get it done. This was you have laid groundwork for Cavani. Maybe he goes in the wintertime and he doesn't play at all because they got somebody else, and he falls by the wayside and he's looking for something. Even though he signed this 3-year deal, he's looking for something to get out and he actually still wants to play. Or maybe it happens next year and maybe you get him for cheaper. I mean, Zlatan Ibrahimovic took forever to get to the LA Galaxy. David Beckham took forever to get to the LA Galaxy, Kevin. This, in my mind, is you went out, you talked to him, you sat in front of him, you made your case, and now you see what happens down the road.
Well, here's what I know about Cavani. He may go, as you said, he may go in the winter transfer window. That works great for PSG because he's making $18 million this year, and so that money comes off PSG's books. They don't need the money for the transfer fee. What they would like to do is probably have a little bit of salary flexibility. So PSG would be motivated to do that. They could force Atletico Madrid to wait until the summer. That would give PSG some insurance that Cavani's not playing, but he's valuable off the bench. It's a 3-year deal. When you talk about the Galaxy, it's a 3-year deal. He'll be 35 when it ends. If he gets out early, we know that's always a possibility. That would be great. He does fit into it. He's the perfect player for the kind of system that GBS wants to play. But the other thing was he's making $18 million. The Galaxy apparently were told that by Cavani's agent that the lowest they would go was $11 million. That's a $7 million break. That seems like Cavani's somewhat motivated to come, but it's also $4 million more than Zlatan made last year, and he's the highest paid player in league history. So there wasn't much of a compromise to be had at this point. You're right. Maybe in 3 or 4 years when he's looking 38 for that last contract,
when he's 38 and still injured. Yeah, I mean,
hey, yes. We've had 37-year-old strikers here that come on over and done pretty well.
Yeah, I think you and I were talking. We were talking about older players coming over. Maybe that was even the beginning of this, but like Ashley Cole was an old defender. All right,
yes.
That's an old defender. A 30-year-old is 34. But yeah, looking at all this. Like I said, this was, in my mind, the LA Galaxy were looking, and we sort of hinted at this, Javier Hernandez. Chicharito still seems like he is on the radar, even though I blame Kevin for that and saying it's not going to happen. Edinson Cavani was a guy who I think they were looking for to bring in the wintertime. I still think there's some guys that they could be waiting for a possible summer entrance whenever the rest of the world sort of goes for the end of contracts and a whole bunch of other things in summertime. So the LA Galaxy could be in the wait-and-see mode, but Cavani was hey, maybe we could get him now, and that would work well.
Well, let's see if the Galaxy keep a DP spot open, which I think they would be wise to do in any case. But if they do, I think that definitely hints at something coming up in the summer. Another guy, let's just cross this off right away. The sort of fallback for Cavani that people talked about was Luis Suarez. Here's a guy
that wasn't a fallback. Let's say that was the pie in the sky reach for the stars one, and Cavani was probably a more realistic drag than Suarez would be. But I continue.
Suarez is going to be 33 next month. He's got a year left on his contract beyond this season. He's making $15.4 million. He's third in La Liga in goals this year. He has 10. All those things make him be a valuable, expensive player, someone that Barcelona would probably still want and certainly want a transfer fee. If Barcelona's not in the same situation monetarily as PSG, they would want money in a transfer if they tried to let Suarez go, and the Galaxy would have to come up in the $11 million range again. I don't think he's going anywhere. And the other thing is, his next door neighbor is Leo Messi,
yes.
And their families are really tight. And Messi's made it known to management in Barcelona that he wants Suarez to stay, and Leo Messi generally gets what he wants, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, big surprise. Best soccer player in the world gets what he wants. Yeah, no surprise. All right. Let's talk about a player who's can I say this? Who's actually coming to the LA Galaxy? He is coming. Okay.
I can't pronounce his name, which is great for me once again.
That's Emiliano Insúa to the LA Galaxy. The reports have been swirling around the last couple weeks, or at least the last week, that the Argentine defender was joining the LA Galaxy, and that deal is done, or at least very close. It's done, right?
It's done. They haven't announced it yet.
Right.
This is part of that talking to the Galaxy. They didn't knock the rumor down. They didn't say move on. They didn't deny it, as they did one that we may have enough time to talk about. There was another deal out there too. But yeah, he is definitely coming. They're just not going to formally announce it until after the first of the year. You and I talked about this before we came on the air. I'm wondering why every other team in the league is announcing these big name signings. And so, the money they're spending, and the Galaxy have been quiet. And you and I talked about that. I said, they're letting other teams get out in front of them. And your argument was it's the holiday season. It's better for them to wait until that's over. And then they're the only team announcing players. I've been told to expect 3 or 4 announcements right after the first of the year. And this will be number 1 on that list, I think.
Yeah. Emiliano Insúa, 30-year-old journeyman defender, played
31 in 3 weeks.
Yeah. So there you go. So he'll be 31. Again, not old for a defender, but Boca Juniors, Liverpool, Galatasaray, Sporting CP, Atletico Madrid, Rayo Vallecano, and then Stuttgart here in 2015.
In the second division.
Yeah, in the second division. So in Bundesliga 2. Stuttgart in 2015 and 2016, and sort of has fallen, I think, by the wayside there a little bit, but could be. I don't know. I feel like this is the kind of experienced journeyman defender that could really make a great impact as a left back. And we talk about a left back and there being a hole at left back. And there is, because you and I are of the general belief, and I believe Dennis DeCloso is of the general belief, that Jorgen Skjelvik and his $1 million contract is not coming back for next year. And so the LA Galaxy...
I think they held on to Skjelvik until this deal was done. I think that when all the contract moves happened, I don't know if they could have moved him anyway.
I don't think they could. They were locked in on a contract. He still has another year on his contract, which is craziness.
I think one team I've heard he may wind up at Hammarby, which is a team that's jointly owned by AEG. So that's where I think that the Skjelvik thing was just kind of left there as insurance at left back. But now that they got this guy, and by the way, the connection to GBS, you forgot to mention it. You said Boca. He was there. He was coming through the youth ranks when GBS, I think, was still playing there.
Yes, he was still playing there. The legend that he is, and doing amazing things for Boca Juniors. So Insúa was down in the youth ranks, then eventually got a loan to Liverpool, and then came back, I believe, to play on the senior team squad there at Boca Juniors. And like we said, then played throughout those other places. So again, a journeyman defender, I think it could be a really good addition. People ask, and certainly there's been some great scouting sort of reports put out on Reddit. There's a guy who loves Stuttgart, and so he knows all about him. And so he was like, yeah, he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's not the worst guy in the world either. And so how that all translates into Major League Soccer and him playing should be really interesting to see. There's one of those things where people say, well, he couldn't be any worse than Skjelvik was, and I'm saying that's not true. He could be a lot worse than Skjelvik. It all matters, price tag and everything else, but it seems to me, at least just looking at this and sort of understanding where this guy's played and where he's gone, and seems that he's always sort of acquitted himself, rather favorably with all of these teams. I would think that this would be a good addition for the LA Galaxy back line, and sort of put it in with that now Felcher and Araujo over there on the right side. You have Dan Steres, you have Pipo Gonzalez, and then you have Insúa over there on the left-hand side. So with Didi Traore possibly being the backup over there. But that's not all, Kevin, because there is another center back rumor that just peaked right now before we came on the air, and that's Carlos Zambrano.
Not the pitcher.
Not the pitcher, the soccer player, a Peruvian center back, 30 years old, possibly being linked to the LA Galaxy as well right now.
Although I did mention to the Galaxy when I was trying to track this down that if they wanted to sign Carlos Zambrano, the pitcher, that might not be a bad idea because they have 2 Dodger games a year they generally go to, the Galaxy does, and they have a first ball ceremony. And oh my God, Gio Dos Santos was so embarrassing.
Yes.
Maybe signing the Major League pitcher just for that first ball ceremony.
Not a bad idea. This one's still in early days right now. I don't know that we have a real good feel on it though, Kevin. What did you look anything up on this particular player?
Yes, I did. The Galaxy said that they had no comment on it, which is not yes, it's not no, it's no comment. He is right now at Dynamo Kiev, but he hasn't played a game this year. He's got a good size, 6'1", 183, so he's a big center back. His transfer market value is 1.7 million, but if he's not playing, it's come down quite a bit from that. But he has moved around a lot. He's played for 5 teams in the last 26 months. He did play for the Peruvian national team. He has a lot of caps with them. Sounds like a guy that if they brought him in would probably be a somewhat inexpensive acquisition, would be a depth guy. Again, that's what I was sort of alluding to earlier, though. If they did bring him in and he came in at any kind of salary, that would once again say to Dan Steres, you got to earn your keep, which up to me is unfair. But, they do need depth on the defensive end. We look like they have all their 4 starters there now. The opening day starters, they have the goalkeeper, where the Galaxy haven't seemed to focus, and maybe some of these signings that we see when the transfer window opens, they've lost 45 goals. Ibra's gone. He had 30 goals. Antuna had 6 goals. He was second on the team. Fabio Alvarez had 3 goals. They're returning only 13 of the 58 goals they scored is all they return. And Sebastian Lletget, Christian Pavone, and Dan Steres, all with 3. Those are the 3 leading returning scorers. So they have a lot of offense to make up for. And as you mentioned, Pavone was only here for a short period and he had 3 goals and a ton of assists. But that's because he was paired with Zlatan. So they definitely need some help at the front end. I think the midfield is set. I think the defense is set, at least from the starting perspective. We know Bingham will be in goal. This is good, though, because now it gives Dennis a clear focus on what he needs to concentrate on going forward after the holidays.
Yeah, striker seems, I think, the one that's still up in the air, which, by the way, I think is leaning more towards no and less towards yes, every day, is Ramon Alessandrini. And whether or not he'll be back, it sort of can change the shape. I mean, we talked about Sacha Kljestan not being a starter, but if you needed him to be a starter, he could. You could move Lletget out wide if you're not going to bring Ramon Alessandrini back in. If you're going to wait and sit on a designated player spot, which might be a wise thing to do, you could even have Pavone up there playing at striker and playing at forward. So it's not there's some options here. I don't think the LA Galaxy fans have any patience for what the LA Galaxy might be trying to do, and I also think that the Galaxy could be playing it smart with the CBA not being decided, with question marks around really what the structure of the team is going to be, that the Galaxy could sit back and then take advantage of this new CBA when it's there. If you have everybody locked in already, that's different. I will tell you this. I think the reason that you're seeing big-name signings being launched by other teams is because I don't expect the designated player structure to change all that much. So if the Galaxy want to go out and get a DP, I don't think that that's going to be affected whatsoever by this new collective bargaining agreement.
But here's the strategy thing. There's 2 strategies. I think teams are going forward based on the old CBA, and I think their argument would be if things change drastically is, hey, we made good faith signings with these players based on the old CBA. You can't. I think a lot of this stuff will be grandfathered in, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That if the CBA changes some of the rules, the agreements entered into this offseason will be honored. But when you talk strategically about the Galaxy, we said they need a striker, they need some offense. They've already signed 2 of their 3 DPs, though, right? Because isn't Pavone going to be a DP this year?
Yeah, Pavone and Jonathan Dos Santos are the 2 DPs right now, so they have 1.
If they need to get a DP, but they want to keep that DP spot open for the summer, that really kind of puts Dennis over a barrel. I mean, how do you do that? How do you go and talk to, the kind of player, the caliber of player that you need to fill to make up for some of those 45 goals you lost, and still keep a spot open for the summer? It seems almost like Dennis has to roll the dice. Either he has to lay back and wait for the summer thinking he has something, and he better be right, because if he keeps that DP spot open all summer and the Galaxy don't score goals, That's not going to be good. Or he says, this is the best I'm going to get. No one's going to come in the summer. This is the guy I want. And then he gives that DP spot away in February.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of that is that, you for sure are going to sign somebody in the summer, even if you don't, have somebody. I'm all about getting the right fit and not the best fit and not necessarily the quick fit. And so I think the Galaxy you have to remember they can also sign some TAM level, which we don't know what they are. So maybe, we don't know what TAM is. We don't know if TAM stays here. We don't know if TAM goes away. We don't know any of those things. But a TAM level player in the current CBA could really affect this LA Galaxy team as well. And you could get a TAM level striker that really does what you need him to do and still have that designated player spot being held. Or you get a TAM level, midfielder that can really help you out in the offensive side, and then you can still fill that DP slot again in the summertime. So there's ways around it to work around it. You just have to be willing to have the patience to have that DP slot unfilled.
And Galaxy fans don't want to hear this, but I don't think this year is going to be the finished product either. Dennis and Guillermo both have talked about, they've thrown it out there a couple of times, a 3-year project, rebuilding this team, what they want the team to look like, the style of play that they want the team to have. This would be year 2. So if this really is a 3-year project, we've still got another 2 seasons to go before the team is, by their deadline, the team that they want to have on the field.
Yeah, they don't get that time. I know it's nice to say that, and I think Dennis has acknowledged that as well, that, we have to win now, and we also have to plan for the future, and we have to do all that stuff. And, Bruce Arena always said, and we'll quote, the man himself, Bruce Arena always told us that, it's impossible to build sort of these teams that just stick around forever, because with MLS and the policies and the salary caps and the way that it's restrictive, you can't give raises to the guys that you want to keep. You're going to lose them, and so it's always about constantly turning over the roster and doing stuff, and hopefully around a core. I don't know that you can say the Galaxy have a core, but being strong up the middle is something that they need to do. And so if it's Pipo Gonzalez and Dan Steres, if it's Jonathan Dos Santos, if it's Sebastian Lletget, and then whoever your striker is sort of up there, you've got some work to do to make that core and make that central spine stronger than it certainly has been in years past. So it's a lot of work for the LA Galaxy. Again, February 29th is their first game, the actual open camp, and when all of that comes up in January. The CBA, I think, expires at the end of January. Is that correct?
January 31st, yep.
So lots of stuff is going to happen here in this next month, but for right now, I think that's it. I think we've sort of covered where it is, except that you wanted to tell everybody some ridiculous idea. I like to say, oh yeah, you should definitely talk about that on the show, and then make it sound ridiculous before I give it to you, about Zlatan Ibrahimovic, right? Because you're saying, adios Zlatan, he's not coming back to the LA Galaxy. We know he departed. He said thank you. He's gone, but maybe not gone.
Well, I'll try to run this. We talked about this before. You really didn't want to talk about Ibra, and I said, man, there's no name we can mention on the show that it stops people more than Ibra. So I'll go through this really quickly. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of the reports coming out from Italy, from the Italian media, which you can't trust 99% of what comes out of the Italian media. So with that as the caveat, I did talk to somebody in Everton who said the interest on behalf of the team in Zlatan, you probably heard there were rumors about him going to Everton. The interest on the term of management was very sincere and very high. Everton feels like they are fighting a losing battle for attention and for relevancy against Liverpool, their the hometown rivals. Their stadiums are a mile apart. So they really wanted to bring Zlatan in, not so much for what he could do on the field, but for what he could do in the community. The new manager who they announced this weekend, Carlo Ancelotti, said today that if he wants to come to Liverpool and he wants to come and enjoy Liverpool, he can, but he's not coming here to play. That was his comment about Zlatan. Zlatan said all along he wants to go back to Milan, where he played before and really enjoyed his time there and was very successful. The latest word is now that AC Milan, the club director, said that he doesn't believe Ibra's coming. He believes that whole deal is dead. However, the club has apparently given Zlatan and his agent until Christmas to accept their latest offer, which appears to be $6.6 million for 18 months. So that's on the table until Christmas Day, the December 26th, which is Thursday. The club management has a meeting scheduled with Zlatan's agent to talk over that. Now, so essentially they're asking Zlatan to take a pay cut from what he got in MLS. There were allegedly some sightings of Zlatan in Beverly Hills this month. He's still apparently around. We know that he likes Southern California. His kids enjoyed it here. I don't think he's coming back, but I'm not ready to dismiss it yet either. If he wants to play one more year, he's burned an awful lot of bridges. He's not popular in the dressing room. It would be a hard swallow for the team to bring him back. But if they wanted to, they got a lot of goals to make up for. I'm kind of on the fence on this. I would not be surprised if it happened, but I would also be surprised if it happened.
It's not happening. Dom Dwyer's not going to Orlando.
Chicharito.
Yeah, you forcing Chicharito in here ain't happening. So, no, all that stuff. So, again, just interesting stuff. I hope that we sort of updated everybody on what you were thinking. There aren't a lot of really big name rumors that are out there right now. I don't know if we're going to see any. I don't know if it's going to pick up, but I do expect everything to pick up after the first of the year. Kevin, you sort of told us that to expect some signings, but I also think that there will be some more signings. I think there will be some more motivation to get the rest of these. The Galaxy have 17, I believe, rostered players right now, which means they can sign 13 more players, all the way up to 30. So there's going to be some additions here, and there's going to be some signings. There are people and players coming in, and so we'll have that coverage for you whenever it happens. But I think before we completely wrap it up, Kevin, I want to wish everybody a happy holidays, Merry Christmas. We're going to take off a break, maybe have a show next week. Just kind of depends on what that is, whether or not my wife still loves me after I do this show. You never know.
You've missed the evening feeding. You're like in the doghouse now.
Oh, I'll be in the doghouse for a while. That's where I live. But
you don't even have it. Oh, you do have a dog.
I do have a dog. Yes.
Yeah.
Piper.
Move over.
Yes,
Piper.
she can slide over. She already sleeps on the bed. I don't know where. Maybe I could sleep down on the dog bed. Maybe that's what would be better. All right. But again, from all of us here at Corner of the Galaxy, I want to wish you guys all very happy holidays. Sorry for the break. Glad we're back, and certainly looking forward to 2020 here as the LA Galaxy continue this rebuild. Sort of to see how this whole thing pans out with players coming in, and what rumors we can hint you on, what news we can break here on Corner of the Galaxy. It's been a lot of fun this year, crazy, exciting year. So I've had a great time. I don't know about you, Kevin. Have you had fun? Did you?
I've had fun. I got a panda Christmas sweater. I got to put that on.
That's good. I have my ugly Christmas sweater on right now. So
I didn't say ugly. You said ugly.
Okay, that was me.
I
My
said
bad.
Panda.
Gorgeous Christmas sweater that has a panda on it. I'm sure that's what it is. All right. Anything else, Kevin?
That's it.
All right. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter, it's at kbaxter11, and head on over to latimes.com, where you can find all of his articles talking about the LA Galaxy and covering soccer in Southern California, sometimes college soccer, sometimes it's national teams, U.S. men's national team, U.S. women's national team. Right there, Kevin covers it all at latimes.com. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerthegalaxy.com, where you can find all of our articles, the off-season rumor and signing tracker. All that stuff is aggregated in one spot for you. Make sure you check that out and keep updated. We have our schedule breakdown on there as well, so check that out. cornerthegalaxy.com. All right, for Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Pato Guesman, wishing you all a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we'll be back as soon as there's some more news to talk about. Thanks, everybody. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. And for all of your independent LA Galaxy news, discussion, and entertainment, including this podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Fans, thanks for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.